You are now live.
Are now live. Okay, everybody, welcome back. This is the 25th of March. It feels like the 25th of May out there. It's beautiful, but I assume we all got the flash from the State House Police that we're 24 hours from a flood problem. So I guess whatever rain is coming, it's probably connected to the tornadoes in the rest of the country. We're going to get some heavy rain, and there is still water up in the mountains, or snow. So tomorrow probably won't be as nice. I'm going to try and get you out of here today so you can get a little time to enjoy. First item on the agenda is Commissioner Tierney. So I told you yesterday, she has sent us all some written responses to allegations, assertions, whatever one wants to call them, that were made on Friday. And as I've said, those allegations were made on, live streaming to the whatever public is watching. And so I thought, in fairness, the response should be given live streaming and available to the public. So Commissioner, the floor is yours, and I'll leave it up to you, whatever you would like to do. Yep, you're muted.
Always stumbling out of the blocks. For the record, June Tierney, Commissioner of the Department of Public Service. I just want to thank you and the committee for taking the time. I very much appreciated that you had this thought, Madam Chair. I did not ask to read this into the record, but I think, to be candid with you, what has been most troubling has been the impact of these events on my staff and concerns that some of them have, that the criticisms of their work and of their credentials are such that they live now forever in the public forum. And so the best remedy I can think of is what you've suggested, which is to have a rebuttal in the public forum as well. I do not want to try the patience of the committee with this reading. I will do it as quickly as I possibly can, while still being intelligible. I would just ask you to keep in mind that I will be looking down at papers, so I won't be making eye contact, and I do apologize for that. It is clear to me that you, Chair Cummings, and the members of this committee are sparing no effort to ensure that good process is observed that is worthy of this forum. And that is the Vermont way, and I thank you for your leadership on that score. Of the many things that were said about this committee on Friday last, the two that jumped out at me were that you are bamboozled by the department, and that you do not take the time or do not have the time to dig into the matters that are within your jurisdiction. And I feel it is necessary to say unequivocally that that has not been my experience with this committee, and that is not the experience my staff has had either. The department has conveyed a detailed rebuttal to you in writing. I am mindful that the committee's time is at a premium at this point, and it is the people's time. My time is at a premium as well, but sometimes you just have to stop and do the necessary thing to make sure that the forum and its sanctity is preserved. And so I really appreciate what you're doing. The document that I forwarded to you on Tuesday, March 23rd, was prepared over the last weekend by the Public Service Department staff whose work and credentials and professional conduct were the subject of the allegations made before the Senate Finance Committee on March 19, 2021. The document is organized as a point-by-point response to the material issues raised. Every effort was made to identify the gist of each of these issues. As that proved hard to do at times, though, I would note that there is a recording of that testimony on YouTube that can be independently reviewed to verify whether the department has accurately captured the respective allegations. As a preliminary matter, I'd like to underscore that the Public Service Department is staffed by 48 professionals who bring their A game to work every day to make sure that Vermont is a place where utility services are safe, reliable, affordable, and sustainable at least cost and with due regard for the environment. The challenges they engage every day are imposing, and the knowledge, skill, and compassion they bring to bear in serving the public is inspiring and of the highest quality in the nation. These individuals serve in good faith and often at considerable personal cost in terms of time and attention spent away from their friends and family to ensure the public is served well and to the best of their ability. They did not deserve the public thrashing they received on March 19. They deserve to be treated with respect and commended for their service. And so I thank this committee and particularly Chair Cummings for the opportunity to do so. I commend the staff of the Public Service Department. I commend them for their devotion to service, for their ability to take in and reflect upon fair public criticism of their work, and for their composure when the criticism from the public is not fair. Speaking specifically to the question about whether we have a telecom engineer on staff, first, the department does not have a telecom engineer position on its manpower table. Rather, we have 2 employees who perform the substantive responsibilities associated with that title. The person who holds the position of telecommunications infrastructure specialist came to the department in 2007, having had 15 years of working experience within the telecom industry. These positions that he had included significant experience in network design and engineering, which were operations of a competitive telecom company which interconnected with several major US carriers. This person also designed and deployed multiple international telecommunication systems for multinational companies. The qualifications and knowledge of telecom engineering of the department's telecommunications infrastructure specialist are among the best in the state. Further, in 2019, the department hired a fiber optic project manager. The person who filled this position came to the department with more than 20 years of industry experience, which included serving as a lead technician and field engineer with the network planning team with Hyperion, Adelphia Business Solutions, Telcove, Level 3, CenturyLink. This person is also well-versed in optical networking, including splicing and documentation processes and critical infrastructure such as DC power and emergency power systems. I'm emphasizing this point because this is the caliber of state employee who is working on telecommunications planning in our agency, and I think it is time that those credentials were acknowledged. Turning to the other allegations in the specific document that we filed with you on March 23rd. The first allegation we noted was the Connectivity Advisory Board has for 5 years failed to meet its statutory obligation to hold certain public meetings, but the department is not responsive to requests regarding missing broadband action plans, and it's alleged that the governor has not appointed enough people and the Telecommunications Connectivity Advisory Board could not constitute a quorum. The response is that the department disagrees with these characterizations. The last annual TCAB public meeting was convened on January 10, 2020. Following that meeting, procedural changes were instituted on January 13, 2020 to ensure that meetings are convened regularly. All meetings of the TCAB are open to the public. These meetings are scheduled by the TCAB chair. Neither the commissioner nor the public advocate are consulted, and nothing in the statute prevents the TCAB from meeting without department permission or involvement. The TCAB has held publicly accessible meetings since 2016. These meetings and information about TCAB can be found at the department's TCAB webpage, and a link to that webpage is included in the written document that I provided to you on March 23rd and that I hope will be posted to the Senate Finance Committee's webpage. The TCAB has struggled at times to maintain a quorum of members. At least 5 members have resigned since the inception of that board. There's been an unexpectedly high rate of resignations from TCAP. There has been a corresponding unwillingness of capable and qualified people who will agree to serve on the TCAP. The statutorily required broadband action plans that were alleged to be missing are filed with the annual connectivity annual reports. Copies of current and past broadband plans can be found on the department's website, a link to which is provided in the March 23rd document. Allegation 2, the Consolidated Incentive Regulation Plan expires in July of 2021. There will not be a duly adopted telecom plan in place, and the Incentive Regulation Plan should be delayed until the telecom plan is in place. The response, this allegation is incorrect. The Consolidated Incentive Regulation Plan expires on July 31st, 2022, not July 2021. And you can see case number 20-2684-PET to confirm that. In October of 2020, the department requested that the PUC extend the current incentive regulation plan until July 2022 in order for it to, among other things, focus on the 2021 state telecommunications plan and the survey process, which the department expects will develop crucial public input about the telecommunications needs of Vermonters that is crucial to any successor incentive regulation plan. Specifically, the department's survey of Vermont residents and businesses' needs for increased, ubiquitous, and affordable service consistent with state policy will influence any successor incentive regulation plan. The department made clear in its extension request that in order to ensure a close nexus between state policy and the needs of Vermonters, it is prudent for any successor incentive regulation plan to be revisited after the 2021 plan is adopted. The department plans to retain outside expert telecommunications consultants for any successor incentive regulation plan filed by Consolidated. Allegation 3. The commissioner elects to not assert jurisdiction over voice over internet protocol providers regarding resiliency and hardening, especially during extended power outages, loosely battery backup issues. The response is that this allegation is incorrect. The approach the department has taken for many years with respect to voice over internet protocol service is based on what is and what is not permitted under state and federal law. It is not a question of election. Fixed VoIP service qualifies as a telecommunications service under Vermont law, subject to state jurisdiction. This is because fixed VoIP service, such as that offered by Comcast, is offered at fixed locations, making it possible to determine whether calls are placed on an interstate or intrastate basis. States only have jurisdiction over intrastate services. The ability to determine the source of a call makes state regulation of the service possible. Nomadic VoIP services are preempted by federal law, and states therefore lack jurisdiction. This is because it is impossible to tell whether calls placed with a nomadic VoIP service provider, such as Vonage, are interstate or intrastate, which renders any assertion of jurisdiction over the service difficult and likely in violation of federal law. With respect to fixed VoIP services and resiliency thereof during extended power outages, the department in 2019, in case number 19-0705 PET, petitioned the PUC to examine and review the steps fixed voice providers are taking to ensure their compliance with federal backup power obligations pursuant to 47 CFR 9.20, which is a federal law citation. This federal law requires fixed VoIP providers to offer subscribers the option to purchase backup solutions capable of 24 hours of standby power. Federal requirements also require fixed VoIP providers to engage in various consumer outreach initiatives. In response to Act 79 of 2019, which directed the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, to expand the scope of a proceeding underway, the PUC filed with the legislature a report addressing VoIP providers' compliance with the federal standards. The report concluded that providers that participated in the PUC proceeding are in compliance with federal backup power standards and summarized various best practices for minimizing disruptions to E911 service during power outages. The PUC explained that the recommended best practices are voluntary measures that may be used by VoIP providers and the E911 board to inform and assist those most at risk when power is lost and a 911 call for emergency services is harder to make. The PUC explained that because the backup power obligations are federally imposed, state authority is limited over those entities subject to it. And while the state clearly has jurisdiction over 911 emergency services regarding health and safety concerns, state jurisdiction over battery backup power obligations for fixed VoIP providers is preempted. Thus, the assertion that the state has jurisdiction over fixed VoIP providers to impose specific backup power obligations must inevitably confront the practical limitations of state authority. Allegation 4, referencing cell towers. The DPS could require generators. DPS could require towers hardened to a specific standard so they won't blow down in a storm. The allegation is that the DPS could impose conditions when the CPG is issued that would require backup or hardening requirements. The response is the department disagrees. If jurisdiction exists, it is the PUC, not the department, that has the power to decide what conditions will be imposed in a CPG. Wireless carriers in Vermont can elect to permit their facilities either through Act 250 or the Section 248A process. Most carriers choose to forego the Act 250 process and obtain cell siting permits from the PUC via Section 248A. The Section 248A process, as set out in Title 30, is a rigorous one requiring detailed review by the department and the PUC, including criteria dealing with public health and safety. With regard to backup generators, they are crucial to providing power to cell phone towers during extreme weather events. To that end, the majority of wireless carriers in Vermont have backup generators installed at cell towers that are maintained on a consistent basis. Currently, this is a voluntary framework. In the wake of Hurricanes Katrina and Harvey, the Federal Communications Commission attempted to impose backup power conditions on wireless providers, which were fiercely opposed and litigated by carriers and thus never took effect. States are not per se preempted from imposing backup power obligations under which a cell tower backup generator requirement would fall. However, because attempts to assert such authority have failed at the federal level and are likely to be challenged at the state level, for instance, see California Public Utilities Commission rulemaking 18-03-011, the department has historically refrained from recommending that the PUC impose such a condition for purposes of Section 248A permits. Allegation 5, resiliency 911 proceeding before the PUC. The allegation was the department recommended that we include only residential fixed line customers in the investigation. In the investigation, the department of the PUC did a half, not even an effort to investigate and come up with remedies and solutions and hardening to make 911 calls go through. The response: this allegation is incorrect. The facts regarding this petition were not presented accurately. PUC case 20-0141 involves an investigation into electrical power losses and their impact on telecommunications resiliency. The department did not initially recommend that the workshop process be limited to only residential fixed line customers. Rather, in its written comments filed with the PUC on February 10, 2020, the department recommended to the commission and workshop participants that the following issues be addressed as part of the workshop process. 1, how electric distribution utilities prioritize capital investments for network reliability and resiliency upgrades generally. 2, cost recovery for and ratepayer impacts of, for both telecommunications and electric customers, electric distribution utility network resiliency upgrades. 3, communications and coordination between electric distribution utilities and ILECs, incumbent local exchange carriers, during storm recovery events. whether and to what extent electric distribution utilities prioritize restoration of service to critical telecommunications and public safety facilities during outage events such as hospitals, E911 public service answering points, law enforcement and first responder stations, and telecommunications providers' central offices, whether existing regulatory mechanisms such as integrated resource plans and service quality performance metrics can and should be better used to specifically address resiliency of the telecommunications network. Allegation 6. The Emergency Broadband Action Plan is a farce of a document. It has no standing or authority, yet is presented as our policy. Response. The department disagrees. The department has standing to produce the Emergency Broadband Action Plan. Such authority derives from 30 VSA Section 202D(a) and 30 VSA Section 202E b 4, 6, 7, and 8. The department sought extensive public comment and feedback on the Emergency Broadband Action Plan published last year. The product of these efforts proved to be a rich source of material that has contributed to efforts to bring Vermonters broadband. Many of its recommendations were enacted into law by the General Assembly after a thorough review by the House Energy Technology Committee and Senate Finance. Allegation 7, regarding the GMP and VEC broadband tariffs. The department petitioned to have these tariffs approved. These tariffs were not approved or even reviewed by the Telecommunications and Connectivity Advisory Board. It has never been in a 10-year telecom plan. These tariffs are a, quote, backdoor attempt to allow the further creation of 25/3 cable line extensions with public subsidies built into the electric rate base, close quote. Response, the department disagrees. Telecommunications and Connectivity Advisory Board has no advisory role in the PUC process for review and adjudication of tariffs filed by the electric distribution utilities. The distribution utilities' interest in broadband deployment throughout their service territories is to ensure equitable access to innovative services and devices that can be load controlled by the utilities, such as electric vehicle chargers and devices and battery installations. The 25/3 connection is a standard that the electric utilities have determined is necessary to have a reliable remote connection to load control devices. The tariffs are otherwise agnostic to the broadband technology that is utilized, and the tariffs expire in 3 years. I just want to clarify on this point that the electric utilities have set 25/3 as a threshold standard. There's nothing in these tariffs that forecloses the stringing of fiber in order to meet these goals. Allegation 8, pole hygiene. There is no enforcement or even monitoring of the reckless and hazardous accumulation of hardware and wires dangling on against each other's wires. There's absolutely no regulation by the department of the PUC of the hazardous conditions being created by these years of build out. Response, the department disagrees. Pole owning utilities, as well as those entities who attach to them, are subject to the jurisdiction of the PUC and to PUC rules. The Commission's pole attachment rule 3.700 governs the process for placing new attachments on existing poles, which includes filing applications with the pole owning entity and an engineering review before any attachments are completed. The Commission's rule also sets out a complaint and grievance process if any attaching entity violates the rules or the applicable engineering or safety standards. In addition, Commission Rule 3.500 requires that all construction and maintenance of electric, telephone, telegraph, and cable television systems and facilities in all locations with Vermont shall conform to the National Electrical Safety Code. Thus, the utilities are charged with maintaining the poles and wires and ensuring that electrical safety hazards do not attain. Neither the PUC nor the department has ever been resourced to continuously monitor the status of pole attachments on thousands of miles of poles and wires located within the state. Indeed, when specific concerns or complaints regarding potentially hazardous conditions are made known to either the PUC or the department, these reports are reviewed and investigated as warranted, with corrective action ordered when necessary. Allegation 9. When Verizon sold Fairpoint, there was $1 million escrow required to be set up to address double polls. It has not been addressed. It's only compounded. Response: this allegation is incorrect. In its February 18, 2008 order in docket 7270, the PUC ordered, among other things, that Verizon provide $6.7 million to be held in escrow so that Fairpoint could remove the dual poles that had accumulated during Verizon's ownership of the Vermont property. Several years later, Fairpoint demonstrated to the PUC that the dual poles subject to this condition had been removed. Allegation 10, Consolidated sold its half interest in the poles to GMP and no provisions been made. Response: the allegation is incorrect. GMP's purchase of Consolidated's interest previously in previously jointly owned poles did not require regulatory approval from the commission. However, to the extent this allegation relates to dual poles, consolidating ownership with the electric utility increases the likelihood that dual poles will be removed in a more timely and safe manner. In a separate docket related to this transaction, docket number 19-1034-SC, Consolidated assumed the obligations to remove a minimum of 500 dual poles per year. On January 21st, 2021, Consolidated submitted a compliance filing reporting that as of December 31st, 2020, it had removed 506 dual poles. Allegation 11, Coverage Co. The department sided with the carriers to disconnect service despite the risk of putting the public in a position where they could not make 911 calls on rural roads. Response: the department disagrees with this characterization. In November of 2017, Vanu Bose, the owner of Coverage Co., died unexpectedly. In the months that followed his untimely death, the company struggled and its financial resources spiraled downward. It reached the point where it could no longer pay for the electricity or backhaul service necessary to operate on its small cell sites. For a period of time, the department participated in discussions with Coverage Co. and the various companies to whom it owed back payments. The companies that were owed money had threatened and in some instances actually disconnected service to the Coverage Co. sites. Finally, Coverage Co. sought protection from disconnections from the PUC. The threshold question before the PUC was whether it had jurisdiction over Consolidated's retail DSL internet access service. The law is well settled on this point. The department correctly argued that the PUC had no jurisdiction over retail DSL internet access service because state regulation of such service is preempted by federal law. It is worth noting that Coverage Co.'s business model, neutral host small cell network, was not economical and does not work for a rural highway cell service. At the point when Vermont-based vendors shut off service, Coverage Co. owed substantial sums of money to nearly every one of its vendors. No amount of delaying the inevitable by supplying more public funds would have saved that network. Allegation 12. The legislature required the department to do an after-action report and an analysis of whether a public subsidy is warranted to keep mobile wireless coverage on rural roads. The department failed miserably in not doing the analysis required by the legislature. Response: that allegation is incorrect. The report in question was submitted to the Vermont General Assembly on December 3rd, 2018, and a link to that report is provided in the written document I submitted to the committee on March 23rd. Allegation 13, the Connectivity Division has specific mobile wireless coverage as part of their scope, and yet they have not required any addressing of the mobile wireless coverage in any of the grants from the Connectivity Division or the CRF awards. They continue the increasing scope of monopolies to the detriment of the public. Response: the allegation is incorrect. As provided in 30 VSA 7515B, connectivity grants are open to all broadband providers, including commercial mobile radio service, which is wireless carriers. CMRS carriers have never applied for a connectivity grant in Vermont, In the most recent round of grant funding using CRF appropriations, the department awarded grants to several wireless internet providers. VTEL was one of them that received grant money and carries voice and data traffic for both T-Mobile and AT&T. Another grantee was Wireless Partners for its Ridge Runner service. Wireless Partners also carries CMRS voice and data traffic for AT&T. Allegation 14, the Agency of Transportation is not assessing right-of-way charges. Response, the department disagrees and has consulted with AOT in this response. 19 VSA 26A directs AOT to charge broadband providers for the use of the state's rights-of-way unless otherwise required by federal law. AOT has undertaken the initiative to implement this requirement in the context of its federally required Utilities Accommodation Plan and has sought input from the Department of Public Service. The department has provided assistance to AOT in the formulation of policy recommendations. Both AOT and the Department of Public Service have raised concerns about the chilling effect these charges will have on rural broadband deployment. This concern, along with the definition of public utilities, is reflected in AOT's decision to continue evaluating the applicability of charges to providers of broadband or wireless communications facilities or services. I've already covered allegation 15, which was about the telecom engineer, so I'm going to go to allegation 16. Allegation 16, public advocate lied on the witness stand regarding telecom plan hearings. Response, this allegation is incorrect. The allegation lacks any factual foundation and is without merit. Allegation 17, Deerfield Wind. The department failed to see appropriate sound measurements were required and did not include background radiation from Searsburg. Response, the department disagrees. This is an inaccurate and incorrect characterization of how sound levels are to be monitored at the Deerfield Wind project site. The Vermont Public Utility Commission approved the Deerfield Wind Sound Monitoring Protocol in docket number 7250, which describes a sound monitoring program to confirm, under a variety of climatic conditions, the Deerfield Wind Project's compliance with the maximum sound levels allowed per its certificate of public good. Specifically, the sound monitoring program provided in the protocol is designed so that background sound levels, including any noise detected from the Searsburg wind turbines, are removed for purposes of determining the accurate sound levels emitted from the Deerfield Wind Project. Allegation 18, the department will not provide an adequate telecom plan because it has not exercised its authority under Section 202D that allows it to require information from utilities. Rather, the department elects to rely upon its authority under Section 202E, which allows non-disclosure agreements. Response, the department agrees that it does rely upon its 202E authority to collect data for many regulatory purposes, including regulatory planning. The department disagrees that the use of Section 202E will result in an inadequate telecom plan. The department has retained an independent consultant, CTC Energy and Technology, Inc., with considerable telecommunications engineering expertise to draft the 2021 plan. The department is confident that it will produce a robust telecom plan. The development of the 2021 plan is underway and is on track for delivery by June 30, 2021. The department is working with the consultant to obtain the information it needs to complete the plan. 30 VSA Section 202D provides that the department may require the submission of data by each company subject to the supervision of the Public Utility Commission. While the PUC may have supervision over telecommunications carriers, it does not necessarily have jurisdiction over every service provided by those companies. 202E provides for the voluntary disclosure of information related to broadband and telecommunications facilities. The department also draws on other sources of information, including annual reports and third-party data. Much of the information sought for inclusion in the plan by this member of the public who made the allegation is competitively sensitive, proprietary, and critical infrastructure. Such information sought includes details about pole attachments, network architecture, electric utility middle mile fiber data, and the like. This data at this level of detail does not aid readers of the telecom plan in understanding the policy positions advanced by the plan, and its inclusion in the plan must be weighed against competing concerns. Madam Chair, we're almost there. I just have one more section. If you'll bear with me. The one issue not touched on in the department's written rebuttal relates to the allegation that I, as commissioner, am dismissive of the public I serve. You heard ample testimony to the contrary yesterday from 6 leaders in public life who have observed my conduct and my attitudes from many perspectives over many years. I trust this committee to give their testimony the weight that is due. All I would add is that there are many YouTube videos, meeting minutes, and emails that reflect the deep and abiding regard I hold for the people and the public trust that has been invested in me for the last 4 years as the Commissioner of the Department of Public Service. I respectfully ask this committee to endorse my appointment so I can devote 2 more years to serving the people of Vermont. I thank you for this opportunity to put these comments in the record.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator McDonald, a clarifying question. I'm not open to debate at this point.
I was going to ask when the time was appropriate to make a motion on the confirmation, but I think what we have heard today has been better organized and more directed to a host of issues that we, the legislature, the department, the public, and private entities scrambling to gobble up their share of the build out, have led us to a position where we have a heck of a lot of money to spend, and we don't have a plan on how to spend it. The person that generated the questions that the commissioner and her staff have worked hard to answer has been helpful, if not pleasant. The staff that works in the Department of Public Service, when I first came to the legislature, learned that they were the highest paid people in state government. And because they had the most technical jobs that required the most training and expertise. That staff over the years was the germination of the energy efficiency programs that took a while to get into place, but that was perhaps the legislature's shortcoming. The fact that we have a lot of money and no plan can not be laid on the shoulders of any one person or group. We are where we are, and I would hope that we would learn from the mistakes that each of us and the different folks have participated in. And in spite of the reservations that I have had about the department in its recent years during this rapidly changing time, which anyone has had a tough time to ride this Bronco as it has developed, that we commit ourselves to reappointing the commissioner and move forward together to try and deal with the problem we have, which is a lot of money to be spent and to spend it wisely. The best news I heard today was that the federal government is going to allow 3.5 years for the money that we get to be spent, which means if we get off to a good start, perhaps that's 4 building seasons, which is a far cry from last year. So I'm being long-winded, Madam Chair, but I would move that we, if it's appropriate at this time, that we recommend that the commissioner continue her role and that we all pull together to support her department in our roles as in this committee.
Okay, I was going to hold that over till tomorrow because that's my usual practice. But if the committee is comfortable, is anyone uncomfortable with voting at this point? If not, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Senator Bray,
Yes.
Senator Brock,
Yes.
Senator Hardy,
Yes.
Senator McDonald votes yes. Senator Pearson,
Yes.
Senator Saratkin,
Yes.
Senator Cummings. That's 7-0-0.
For that one. Thank you, Commissioner. This has been long and I think painful for a lot of us. And I thank you for sticking with us and maintaining your good humor. Senator Bray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Commissioner Tierney is, the other hat that Senator McDonald and I wear is just down the hall, and Senate Natural Resources and Energy, which works extensively and regularly with the commissioner's staff. And because some of the charges were laid last week addressed to her staff in particular, I just do want to speak up while we're setting the record straight that we've had excellent and timely assistance in that committee for years. And they've been an important partner in the work we've done. And I think although the commissioner is a less frequent visitor, she too has been helpful to us. So I just want to add that while we're rounding out the picture this morning. Thank you.
I think it's a very good lesson for us to remember that when we criticize the head of any group, that there are many people under them working that also absorb the criticism and take it as a criticism of themselves. And I think we just need to be sensitive and aware of that. Things get stressed. Things have been moving very quickly, and I can't send people to the pro tem's office or the hall to cool off, which would be my normal practice, or for me to yell at them. So I think sometimes things just get a little overheated, and I'm glad this is behind us. And thank you, Commissioner. And we are going to go on with Maria and I believe the telecom plan.
Then I might as well stick around.
This is just a walkthrough of what the House is sending us. I don't believe is it, or is it not, Maria?
Oh, no, this is something else, isn't it,
This
Maria?
is something else. Okay. I'm
Oh, boy.
finding my agenda as we speak. Every time I change screens, it disappears. So Maria, whatever we're doing, do it.
Okay.
I'm going to excuse myself to go have a root beer, but it was a
I
pleasure,
think that's a good
as
idea.
always,
Thank you.
visiting with all of you, and thank you for your confidence. I have every intention of showing myself worthy. Thank you very much.
I'm sure we'll give you the opportunity. Okay, this is telecom incentive regulation plans. Okay.
I think so. And I think it was narrowed. I think I'll be in on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, to go over
Okay.
the House broadband bill.
Okay, I know we're just trying to get a head start on everything at this
Yeah.
point.
Yep. And I think the question that came to me, there was just a pretty narrow issue, and it was in response to some of the testimony you received last Friday about incentive regulation and how it
Yes.
applies
This was the whole
to.
consolidated
Correct.
is coming up, and there was, I believe
Well-
the word side deals was kicked around.
Right. And
Okay.
so this was, I think, to provide a little bit of historical context. And I think the commissioner has already informed you that that IRP is not going to come up for review until next summer. There was a question about whether you would want to suspend any formal action by the commission on the incentive regulation plan. until there is a telecom plan, which you're scheduled to get this summer as well. So I think the fact that the department petitioned for an extension, there's not that urgency. You will be receiving a telecom plan this summer, and then you can decide to do whatever you want to do. There was reference made to 1992 when the legislature did in fact ask the Public Service Board to not have any formal action on what was then a telecommunications agreement. In any event, but the other issue that came up that I was asked to kind of speak to and clarify was this notion of a public contract advocate, perhaps intervening in any incentive regulation plan by Consolidated. And I just think it's really important to clarify that statute that allows for a public contract advocate hired by the Attorney General actually was basically repealed in 1997. So it's still in the green books, but it is not effective. And if this had come up in the summer, I think Ledge Council, under its statutory revision authority, would probably suggest that it no longer appear in the green books to remove any confusion, which seems to be out there. That doesn't mean going forward, you can't decide to amend the laws in whatever way that you want. But that 226A that allows for contracts between the department and a telecommunications provider, that has, I don't remember the last time now. I did reach out to the department yesterday. They were extremely helpful in kind of giving me some more historical context. But there hasn't been an agreement under that statute since the early 90s. There is now a new statute that governs incentive regulations plans for telecom providers. That's 226B. There is no provision in there for the Attorney General appointing a public advocate. So really, I think my goal was just to eliminate some potential confusion that was out there, and speak kind of directly to that. So I hope that's helpful.
Maria, the incentive regulation.
Yep.
I'm just putting together things that I've heard. And I think it was from the commissioner that when there were a lot of complaints about Fairpoint and customer service or poor customer service, and I believe the department recommended a small fine, but because there were so many, it would add up. And the PUC, is that where there was a requirement that they build out so many miles? Is that, where did that, because that, there's been a lot of like upsetment about private utilities getting public money. And other than the $2 or $3, or maybe if we're lucky, $4,000 a year, which in stringing line is decimal dust, I'm not sure where public money is in this game, except I know that there was a requirement, maybe for a certificate of public good, that so many lines be strung. Do you know any background on that, or can you find that?
I can absolutely find it, and I would want to double check, because off the top of my head, when those conditions were applied, I'm not sure if it was in the context of the service quality proceeding or a prior incentive regulation plan. I just don't know. And
Okay, if you
I
can
can-
check that.
absolutely.
Because I think that's something we have to understand,
Yeah.
that there's there's several authorities here, but the ultimate authority is the PUC. They make the final decisions, and they are quasi judicial and are supposed to remain independent. And there's been one or two times where the legislature has wanted to intervene and change a decision, and those have also been highly controversial things to do. So I think that's going forward to understand what those build out requirements were and where they came from would be helpful to us. Because CUDs are 5-6 years old, other than EC Fiber. I think that's about 10 years old, but they're relatively new. And before that, I don't think there was much other than private for-profit providers. So if we can just figure that out, I think that would be helpful. Senator McDonald, you're muted. Senator, you're muted.
When Maria takes a look at this, she might look at the cases where the providers have been fined for failure to fulfill contracts and agreements. And then the fines have been used rather than being paid to catch up on things that they had failed to do. And the dispute would often be that they were spending money, the disappointment would often be that they were spending money to reinstall antiquated technology instead of moving ahead. But
Okay.
the biggest gripe was that fines weren't levied. They were given back to the company and for things that just weren't getting done.
Okay. And maybe we should see if we ever put requirements on what they did. We do have a role in this. Okay. Thank you, Maria. Senator Hardy.
Oh, were we just excusing Maria? I was just going to ask if I'm sorry, I stepped away to take a call, so I missed what we were doing. But if Maria's done, then I'll just move on to the next thing with the rest of the committee.
We are actually, we have on the agenda, because we were invited to this unemployment forum, and I think you've all gotten emails with the Zoom information. This is from the Associated Contractors, but I think it's always good to hear the other side. I'm going to try and get on and listen to it on my phone as I drive up the hill, but I hope some of you will attend, and we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we have Commissioner Bolio coming in. Right now, this whole, what are we going to do about the unemployment, taxable, not taxable, the $12.5 million loss, plus the PPP. I felt we should have him in because they keep talking about the committees of jurisdiction, but this is really put in the House, came over, then the new regulations hit. And I think APROPS is trying to figure out how it's going to absorb over $12 million in cuts. But I think it would behoove us to take a little more time and find out exactly what will happen if we do the link up, and what will happen if we don't do the link up. I know House Ways and Means is working on some basic changes to the timing of link ups in the future, which was some of the frustration last year. So I think we'll just have a more detailed conversation with him. So, because I was under the impression, I think from what I've heard most of you was that, well, this is a done deal. I mean, there's really no option but to link up, because the forms are out and people have filled them out, and we have to do this. And I think it's going to be just the decision is probably going to be a joint one and be done in conference, but we should be ready to make recommendations if we have any strong feelings either way. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you for today. I hope we can continue on a more even keel. So thank you all. And Michael, good luck with whatever the issue is with your amendment.
Which one are you talking about? Oh, that, yeah,
Oh, that one.
that's just a technical glitch. Yeah.
That's
Good
just
luck on
one,
all
you
of
can't, you can't recess and huddle in the cloakroom with your lawyers anymore.
Quite frankly, I don't even know what the issue is. Becca tried
Okay.
to explain it to me, but it just sounds like a procedural thing.
Okay,
So
well,
thanks.
good luck with getting that straightened out.
Now.
We can